All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network. I'm here. I'm ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets as they get into a week that should be very interesting, very telling for how many games they are going to win as a team this season. Should be a good one, a 4-game homestand for this, starting with Sacramento tonight. Then on Wednesday, they'll play Miami. Then Friday, they host the Golden State Warriors in a NBA Cup game. And then Saturday will be their first back-to-back. They face the Indiana Pacers in that one. If you can hear it in my voice, I'm getting sick. Unfortunately, it's getting worse. So I probably won't be going to the game tonight. But I'll do my best to power through on this as much as possible. Hopefully you enjoyed that new intro video. I finally got it to go, finally got it working. And hopefully that was a nice little touch there. Once again, I'm Ryan Blackburn of Mile High Sports. I cover the Nuggets on a day-to-day basis, also over at Locked On Nuggets. But Pickaxe and Roll is the show for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the most part, unless deemed otherwise, unless the Nuggets schedule kind of shifts that around a little bit. And I've been having a good time with it, and hopefully everybody has been enjoying the show. Let's get into the flow now. We'll do a couple segments today. The first segment is going to be about the new roles. I wrote something earlier this morning, or scheduled it for this morning, about the Nuggets minutes per game, their usage rate, and just how things have sort of transpired at the beginning of the season. First 5 games of the year, nothing crazy, but thought it was interesting to at least get a little picture from that. And then we'll get into the homestand and do 3 and 3. As I debuted last week, 3 things from last week, 3 things from this week that I am thinking about at this current point. Okay, let's go into the minutes and usage. As I mentioned, I wrote about this on Mile High Sports. You can check out the full article if you would like. But I'm going to just kind of go through the numbers here real quick on where certain guys are at. First one, let's do a ranking for minutes per game of where the Nuggets are at this stage of the season. Nikola Jokic, 34.8 minutes per game. Last year, he was at 36.7, so it's slightly lower, but not that much lower. Jamal Murray at 33.8. Christian Brown at 30.8. Aaron Gordon at 30.2. Last year, Aaron Gordon was down at 28.4, but that also included some injury games, some games coming off the bench, so not a surprise that he's back up at 30. Cameron Johnson is 26.8, rounds out the starting 5. He's by far the lowest. He also had an injury game, so I expect that to normalize and get back to that 28 to 30 range as well. Tim Hardaway Jr. is the 6th man off the bench at 23.2 minutes per game. Peyton Watson's right behind him at 21.2. Those guys are clearly the 6th and 7th man. Bruce Brown's the 8th man at 18.4. He gives them a level of versatility in that backcourt. And then the 9th man is Jonas Valanciunas at 12 minutes per game, which is, I know, probably lower than a lot of people thought. He and Jokic have not shared the floor together so far this season. So that is, of course, one of the reasons why his number is lower. Behind him, the 10th man in the rotation right now is technically Jalen Pickett at 5.3 minutes per game, but that's such a gap that, like, really Denver's playing a 9-man rotation. And then if there is a 10th man, it's coming from garbage time or from a very small burst in the middle of a quarter at various points, a defensive sub, things like that. So it's been a 9-man rotation. And if you've been listening to this show, you're not surprised, because that's what I've been saying for the entire time. It's the most simple way to stagger a singular starter, and it's the most easy way for David Adelman to kind of manage the group of veterans that he has, where obviously the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th man are Tim Hardaway, Peyton Watson, Bruce Brown, Jonas Valanciunas. Behind him, or behind those guys, are young guy in Jalen Pickett, young guy in Julian Strawther, Zeke Naji, who's now a vet, like he's in his 6th year. Deron Holmes is somebody who hasn't really played much. Spencer Jones is somebody who's probably closer to the rotation than any of those guys. And then Hunter Tyson. None of those guys are every night players for the Nuggets so far. That doesn't really surprise me. I would expect maybe that changes at some point during the season, but like honestly, Denver hasn't had an injury absence yet, so there hasn't really been much of a reason to deviate from the initial plan. So that doesn't surprise me, and it makes sense to me that Denver will go with this 9-man rotation out of the gate. They will continue to play this specific mix, except like the 4-game homestand where you would like to get some guys in rhythm. You would like to get some guys in a comfortable situation. If you can't play guys like Julian Strawther, Spencer Jones, Jalen Pickett, Zeke Naji, if you can't, like, Samuel says, title was misleading. I'm going to talk about Russ in the second segment. It's just not the first segment. I think that if you can't play those other guys at the beginning or like in this particular setup where it's November, the pressure's pretty low. It's like you're facing the Kings, the Heat, the Warriors, and the Pacers. Like you should be able to get those guys some minutes, or at least one or two of them some minutes at some point during the stretch. So do I think that Denver's just going to go with a 9-man rotation for this next 4 games? No. I think they'll probably go 10. He'll probably go 9.5, somewhere in that general range. But whoever is that 10th man will be different depending on the situation. The next thing is the usage, which I find more interesting. The numbers themselves are interesting. And I just did this for the starters because the bench, like, it's still a little bit shaky as to what the bench, like Jonas Valanciunas still has a 30% usage rate when he's out there. When he is out there, the Nuggets are trying to feed him the basketball, which is pretty interesting. But the usage rate for the starters, Jamal Murray leads by far at 29.1%. Nikola Jokic is at 22.5. It's one of the lowest that he's ever had. Aaron Gordon at 22.1%. Christian Brown at 16.1%, which is in line with last year. And Cam Johnson is all the way down at 13.3%. That number is drastically different from, I think, what people would expect. Michael Porter Jr. last year was at 20.2 in the role that Johnson is playing. So there's a clear drop off in terms of the amount, like it's a 35% drop off, somewhere in that general range in terms of the amount of possessions he's taking up. In Phoenix, Cam Johnson maintained a 17.1% usage rate. So that I think is more in line with where I think he's going to be. Brooklyn, he had a 21.3% usage, which is higher than what Michael Porter was doing for Denver. I think he'll probably end up being at around 18 to 19%, somewhere in that general range. But the real shocker here for a lot of people was that Murray is at 29.1 and Jokic was at 22.5. Jokic has obviously had a lot of shots, a lot of possessions that he's been using over the course of these last 5-6 years. Basically, when he won his first MVP, he was at 29.6% usage rate. This is a Basketball Reference for what it's worth. The year after that, without Murray and Porter, 31.9. It was a massive usage season for him. The championship year, he was down to 27.2. Year after that, 29.3. Last year, he was at 29.5. And this year, down to 22.5, as I mentioned. So kind of in that 27 to 31 range, just based off of how things are breaking down for like throughout the season. And so that's where Murray is right now. Murray, for this would be a career high for him, I believe, in terms of the usage that he's putting out there. But Jokic, this would be not a career low, but like even before he won the MVPs, Jokic was at 26.6, 27.4, 24.2, 23.5. It would date back to his rookie season of 19.9%. That was the lowest usage rate Jokic has ever had in his career. And so 22.5 is obviously drastic. That's going to go up. It is going to regress. This is 5 games into the season. I just find it interesting. Obviously, Aaron Gordon having a 50-point game, Jamal Murray having a 43-point game in game 3, Denver having a couple of blowouts. There are some reasons as to why Jokic is not like amping up the shot attempts at this stage of the season. But I do think that it is at least fascinating to think about what Jokic would do and what his numbers would look like if that usage went way down, if the Nuggets didn't have to go through him on a consistent basis to be the best offense in the NBA, because right now they are. Excuse me. Right now they are the best offense in the NBA from a statistical standpoint, adjusted offensive rating on dunks and threes. So it's not a surprise that like Jokic hasn't felt the need to take that many shots. But Murray throughout his career, as I kind of show you guys this from a usage rate standpoint, this year he was a 29.1 so far. Last year, 24. Year before that, 27.8. Year before that, 26.1. Then he missed the 20 ACL year. Before that, 24.8, 25.2, 24.9, 22.8, 21.6. So kind of in that 21 to 25 range to start his career. And then as his career has gone on, he's gotten more involved, but this is the most involved that he's ever been. This is also the most efficient season that he's had to date. So again, 5 games. There's still a lot for him to figure out, to adjust to. There are going to be some tougher matchups that he's going to have to face. But I do think that the way that Murray has started the season, it's not a surprise that he's taking on more usage. It shouldn't surprise anybody at all. So hopefully he continues to take some pressure off of Jokic in that manner. And that, I think, is going to be an exciting piece of this. The fascinating question that I know a lot of people are wondering about, because there have been a few Jokic-specific fans that have popped into my mentions and talked about Murray in the comments being like, are the Nuggets actually a better team when Jamal Murray is taking more shots? Is that better? I don't know. Because we've never seen it before, so we don't know. There's no confirmation here. What I will say is that the actual statistical breakdown of this, when Jokic and Murray share the floor together, Jokic has a 23% usage rate. When Jokic is on the floor and Murray is off the floor, so you would think that Jokic would amp it up in those situations, he's down to 20% usage rate, which is basically his rookie numbers. That's basically where he was at. So when he's on the floor with Murray, it wouldn't surprise me if his usage rate is down below what it usually is. But it's also been way down when Murray is off the floor because he's just trying to get everybody else involved. He's working very hard to get Cam Johnson set up, Christian Brown set up. He's setting the table for Aaron Gordon when he's out there, getting Tim Hardaway some shots, Bruce Brown, just whoever he's playing with. He's trying to get those guys shots as opposed to taking on his own personal shot diet. It's early. That will normalize. But the times when Jokic and Murray are out there together, Murray's actually had a 30% usage rate during that stretch. And when Murray is on the floor without Jokic, it's down to 25. So really interesting breakdown. They really focus on the two-man game when those guys are playing together. When Jokic and Murray are on the floor, it's basically Jokic-Murray two-man game, Jokic-Murray-Gordon three-man game. But when they split up, they've each been very focused on getting other people involved, which I think is a very fascinating kind of delineation there. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the main topic for this video. We're talking about Russell Westbrook returning to Denver. We'll do the 4-game homestand, and then Monday's 3-3. Very excited to tell you guys what I'm thinking about on this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. This podcast is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone feel vulnerable. Data brokers, they profit off of your data. It's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. Have you ever been the victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/hit and use promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Always appreciate folks that are hopping in here live. But even if you can't make the live, always do appreciate when people are stopping by. If you say something kind, that would be great. If you say something unkind, I'll read it anyway. I'll still read it. So it's all good. Okay, let's focus in on next piece here. Sacramento Kings come to town tonight. They've got a lot of injuries going on. Zach LaVine is questionable. Devin Carter is questionable, though he's been a very low usage opportunity guy for them. I think Malik Monk is out. Keegan Murray is out. There's another guy who's questionable. That's a main piece of their rotation. I can't remember who it is. But they're injured. Like they're injured right now. They are bothered. They are in a situation where, things are not necessarily looking good. But Domantas Sabonis, he still makes Jokic work on a consistent basis. Those guys go back and forth with each other. Sabonis plays a very physical style of basketball. He is a worse version of Jokic in most categories, except for rebounding. That's one where I do think that Jokic is a better rebounder, especially when he gets to focus on it. But Sabonis has been like towards the top of rebounding pretty much every single season that he's been with the Kings. According to FanDuel, the rebounds per game leader odds for the season, Domantas Sabonis leads at plus 210. Jokic is at plus 360. Victor Wembanyama plus 550. Really grown as a rebounder and a physical person, Victor Wembanyama. Walker Kessler's at plus 850, and Ivica Zubac is plus 1300. Jokic so far has been very good as a rebounder. Not necessarily doing anything too crazy from that regard, but I mean, he hasn't played an extensive amount of minutes that he would normally play, but he is still leading currently in both rebounding and assists per game in the entire NBA at 14.4 rebounds per game. That's pretty good. Domantas Sabonis, as I go check that out, Domantas Sabonis is pretty close at 13.6 rebounds per game. So really what this says is Sabonis has led the league in rebounding as I look at it here in each of the last 3 seasons in rebounds per game, 12.3, 13.7, 13.9. So if Jokic is going to lead the NBA in rebounding, it's going to have to be because he outpaces Sabonis, because that dude, there's not a lot of competition for rebounds in Sacramento. That's for sure. Okay. That's a factor, but beyond that, like the Kings' injuries are, of course, a thing, and then it's Russell Westbrook's return that should be the big factor here that a lot of people are paying attention to. Russ obviously declined the player option that he had with the Nuggets. There was a financial reason for him to do so. Him signing a minimum contract with any team would have paid him more than the player option that he had with the Nuggets. That's just how the growth of the salary cap works. It was a 5% raise that he got off of the previous year's 5%, or the previous year's minimum contract, but the league as a whole went up about 10% in terms of their salary cap. So obviously it made a lot of sense for him to decline. He would have if he just gotten another minimum, that would have been in line with what he was supposed to get. And made some more money. But it also kind of signified the possibility that he just didn't really want to come back to Denver. I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I think that there would have been some desires for him to come back if the Nuggets made more of an overture to actually retain his services. But I don't think the Nuggets made that their top priority. I think that from the perspective of Denver trying to figure out what they needed long term, they added somebody like Bruce Brown, who didn't need the ball in his hands in order to make an impact from an offensive and defensive standpoint. Good vibes with Bruce Brown. Obviously, everybody's like, hey, get the guy who you won a championship with, and the guy who had really brought great energy and great personality when he was here. He fit with the team. The only reason he ever left was because he had to go make life-changing money. That was a requirement. And then they also got Tim Hardaway Jr. as a minimum contract, who also is a wing kind of spacer, has done a really great job as a shooter off the bench so far this season. You can already see the presence of what he brings to the Nuggets and how that can affect their offense in a really consistent way. His defense has also been pleasantly surprising so far. It'll probably struggle throughout the year, but so far Tim Hardaway Jr. has done his job, and that, like, there's a reason why I think they decided to go without Russell Westbrook, despite the fact that they have an open roster spot right now. They could have brought him back. There's no reason why they couldn't have. But ultimately, with the amount of minutes that are available for Denver and the very specific role that Russ would have played, they decided against it. And so Russ was kind of left out. He was left out to dry a little bit, tried to figure out where he was going to go. Sacramento was a team that they had thought could be a possibility for him, and I don't really like the fit because of all of the other players and pieces there that need the ball in their hands in order to be impactful. But Russ is another one of those guys and can at least provide some defense and emotion and amp things up and really kind of change the flow for them. So in theory, it can work, especially because Schroeder, by the way, was the other guy who was questionable. Because Schroeder's okay as a starting point guard. He's not great. Russ could, in theory, take that starting spot away from him at some point, and he's talented enough, and the talent has never been the question. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of energy he brings coming back to Denver. I do think that things didn't necessarily end great. Obviously, Nuggets fans are very polarized by what Russ did while he was here in Denver for just one season. He had some major highs. He really helped them get through that first round playoff series against the Clippers. His hand obviously was giving him issues, and tearing two different ligaments that needed surgery. That certainly hurt the shooting in his shooting hand. But also some of the wildness and some of the erraticness kind of behind the scenes, I think, really wore on some people throughout the season. And then into the playoffs where, there were a variety of stories that came out about his overall perspective and his overall impact on the locker room. And I do think that he's a great teammate. There's no question about that. He's going to go to bat for you as a player, but he also has some expectations on how things are supposed to go. He's not going to change for anybody, including for his team, including for the people that are in the locker room with him. He knows who he is, and he's made a Hall of Fame career being that same player for the vast majority of his time. So it's no slight to him. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the 30 best players we've probably ever seen play the game. But the Nuggets decided to move on. It was probably the right call. They have a better mix, I think, for what they need. And I hope Russ continues to have success with the Kings. I also know that he's going to really amp it up tonight. He's going to really try to wear down Jamal Murray. He's going to really try to take the ball from Bruce Brown. He's going to try to bully him at some points, and those guys are going to go back and forth. That'll be a very interesting matchup with the second unit. I'm very curious to see how this works out. It'll be dramatic, to say the least, and I'm sure there will be some trash talking, Who knows? There might be some trash talking in this particular game. There might be some discussions between players. We'll see how that goes. According to FanDuel, the Nuggets are 12.5-point favorites tonight versus this injured Kings squad. I was thinking that it would be about there because the Nuggets are a better team, and they're also, in theory, going to be fully healthy heading into this one. But the Kings do have some motivation. So this is either going to be a 20 to 25 point blowout for the Nuggets, or it's going to be a very close game that goes back and forth between these teams. And the Kings might steal it because Russell Westbrook is doing some amazing things. So I'm very curious to see how it breaks down. It's going to be very fascinating. Tony asked earlier, was any of that true about Westbrook off the court, though? Yes. It didn't just come from nowhere. That's not. It's there are certain things that obviously you're still going to hold on to and still not going to fully report. But yes, it didn't just come from nowhere. That's for sure. Okay. Let's wrap up this episode with 3 and 3. This is a Monday recurring segment that I am going to do for the Nuggets and for 3 things that I saw last week and 3 things that I'm looking forward to this week. It should be good. Last week, obviously, the most important thing to me was Jamal Murray's explosion versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Keep in mind, this is a team that, they didn't have Anthony Edwards. They didn't have Jalen Clark, but they also let Nickeil Alexander-Walker go. And the only guy that could really match up with Murray defensively, there are 2 guys. It was Jaden McDaniels, who's given him problems in the past, but Murray, I think, has really started to figure that matchup out a bit. And Dante DiVincenzo, who's going to be one of the more consistent options on Murray. He can be very physical. He can also, he's athletic enough to keep up with Murray, but maybe doesn't necessarily have the length and physicality to really be an impactful defensive matchup. But Murray going for 43 points, including over 30 in the second half. That's a big deal. That is you want to talk about game changers and potential opportunities to just show the kind of level that you are at, as opposed to because one of the things I was worried about with Murray for a while was, does he have that next gear, that superstar gear anymore, where he could change a game and go for a crooked number, go for a crooked total? And he absolutely did. So really cool. And it happened so early in this season. He's in a really great place. And that game against Minnesota should really excite a lot of people. Next, number 2, Tim Hardaway Jr.'s presence as a shooter off the bench. It has helped them pretty much every single night he has been out there so far. He shot really poorly in the preseason. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, what's going on here? It's been great in the regular season so far, about 44% from 3. I don't think that's going to hold. I think it's probably going to be closer to 38 to 40%, but some of the shots that he is getting are really good, and he has been so good as a just spacer, catch and shoot kind of 3 guy. He's not going to be a massive pull-up threat, but if the Nuggets can hit him on catch and shoot jumpers, there's no reason why he can't change any of the games that he's playing. I don't think it's going to happen on a consistent basis, but it'll happen enough to really change the flow off of the bench, which is just something that the Nuggets needed. They absolutely need somebody who can do that. Julian Strawther was somebody that they were hoping could do that. Maybe he will still be able to, but for now, Tim Hardaway Jr. is the best that they have in terms of the game-changing shot making from the perimeter off the bench. And finally, Christian Braun's tentativeness on the perimeter is such a juxtaposition with Tim Hardaway's lack of tentativeness, his willingness to shoot those threes. Christian Braun's tentativeness, I think, is something that I'll be watching, but it really stood out in this past week. Denver needs Christian Braun to be the best version of himself as often as possible. And it's something that they are going to be monitoring, that I'm going to be monitoring throughout the year. It's not going to change my perspective on who I think Christian Braun will be throughout his career. But in terms of what he can be immediately for the Nuggets, I mean, here are the 3-point totals to start the season. 0 for 1 in the opener, 0 for 1, 1 for 3, 1 for 3, 0 for 3. So he's 2 of 11 to start the season. It just hasn't really found that rhythm at all in this particular season. It's still extremely early. He'll probably still finish the year shooting about 38 to 40%. But at least right now, he has been very hesitant. And that is something that I think, like, if there is a criticism that you could have of Denver's lineup, it's not how many shots Murray's taking or how few shots Jokic is taking. Is that when Christian Brown is catching the ball on the perimeter, he's got to put it up. Like that's what he's getting the ball out on the perimeter for a lot of these times. So hopefully he plays with, not plays with confidence. Like, he's a very confident player, but just is willing to do the hard thing, which is take those threes on a consistent basis. Good Lord. We are fighting through it here, folks. Okay. This week, 3-3. So that was 3 things from last week. Now it's 3 things that I'm looking forward to this week. First is taking care of business. Can you win 4 games at home? Like, I know it's not necessarily easy, but 4-game homestand for Denver, and the games that they are facing are against the 2-4 Kings, the 3-3 Miami Heat, I believe the 4-3 Golden State Warriors, and the 1-5 Indiana Pacers. In theory, this should be a week where they go 4-0. It should be. Like, they will have to bring the right momentum. They'll have to really be focused at various points. They can't let the defense slip. But the offense should be able to score against all 4 of those teams. They showed that they could do that against Golden State when they put up 131 in OT. There were some points where they struggled a bit, but for the most part, I think the Nuggets should be able to score against everybody here. The question is whether they'll be able to defend. Are they going to get into shootouts? Are they going to be able to lock in? Can they turn defense into offense? Things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing, can you go 4-0? Can you go 4-0 in a homestand? That'll be a great sign at the beginning of the year. Number 2, you're going to deploy a 9-man rotation or more. Is it going to be the same 9 guys? I talked about this in the first segment. Right now, it's been 9. It's been, okay, Spencer Jones maybe comes in for 30 seconds, or Julian Strawther comes in for 4 minutes, or something like that. I don't think that there's been much of a reason for the Nuggets to go with more than 9. Like, they have a really good flow. You want to see those guys play a lot. But is there a reason at all to go with 10? Is there a reason to go to Julian Strawther in a game? Is there a reason to go to Jalen Pickett in a game? Is there a reason to go to Zeke Naji in a game? Things like that. Spencer Jones obviously has been a factor in some of them, but will Denver go to those guys, or is it just going to be their top 9? So far, they've had questionable designations for Cam Johnson. They had questionable for Jamal Murray. Both of them are probable in this particular game, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of the starters or one of the bench guys missed one of these games, got a night off, things like that. I hope that they continue to take nights off, and then that allows Denver to go to other players, learn some other things about the rotation at some point. But to be fair, when you do that, it changes your perspective a bit, and you might lose one of those games that you're expecting to win. So you can't just rest for the sake of resting. It has to be for a reason, and you got to try to avoid it in order to win sometimes. So we'll see what happens. But number 3, first back-to-back of the season is on Friday and Saturday. I expect them to really go hard for that NBA Cup game. It's not because of the NBA Cup. It's because they lost to the Warriors earlier this season. So they'll probably go hard for that, try to get some revenge for that particular performance. How do they respond on Saturday night if they've amped it up again on Friday? If they're facing the Pacers. The Pacers have not been good so far this season. They have a lot of injuries. They do not have a center to match up with Jokic, but they do have speed. They do have athleticism. So can Denver keep up on the second night of a back-to-back in that situation? We'll be curious to see how the Nuggets approach it. Okay, folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. I'm fighting through it. Probably not going to the arena tonight because I don't want to get anybody sick. but I will continue to try to get better. And then tomorrow I will have a reaction to the Nuggets game tonight against the Sacramento Kings. Again, this week will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and we'll have fun with that. Everybody, have a great week. Hopefully, it kicks off just right for you. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.